How's it going? Good. All right. If the ushers could come on down, we'll get rolling on that. So I got a story for you. This week on Friday, a person called the church, and basically, long story short, they needed help with a hotel room because they're about to get into a new place, but they kind of have that layover, and they didn't have the money to get into a hotel room. Now, here's the issue. We generally don't pay for hotel rooms because we could spend all the money we ever make on hotel rooms and never get anybody in a sustainable housing situation. Hotel rooms are really expensive in there for only one night, And so generally we don't do that. And actually, as a rule, we don't do that, right? And so this person's asking me to do something that I'm really not supposed to do. And I'm like, oh, my heart breaks on the inside a little bit. I try to act tough, but I'm a big baby. And so I was like, man, I was like, I can't, like I'm halfway getting sentences out of my mouth. I'm so sorry, I can't. And then one of our interns runs up and goes, hey man, somebody gave a $100 gift card this week for some stuff. And I was like, oh really? And here's the deal, they need $100. I was like, all right, God wins, we're just gonna do it. And I'm gonna blame it on him. And so we did it. But here's the thing, cool things like that don't happen unless you guys give. And you have no idea the blessing that the gift cards that people give, along with the tithe, but the gift cards that people give, how far that goes and how often people come in needing a gift card for some groceries or gas. Gas is a big deal, and those things go a long way. So thank you very much. I'm going to pray now for this. Dear God, I just pray that you would use each gift that's given today to move your kingdom forward. I pray that you would bless each giver and just give them the comfort and the knowledge to know that every single penny that comes in this place is meant for your glory. And I just pray that through giving that you would just grow all of us in faith and that you would make us into the men and women that you created us to be. And God, I pray that for this sermon, I just pray that you'd keep all my stupid in and let your good stuff out. Amen. All right. You clapping for my stupid? How y'all gonna do that to me? All right. So this sermon series is called The Bible Tells Me So. And the idea is we want to talk about hard subjects and give biblical perspective on it. So that means that a few things are bound to come up. One is race, and another is money. Here's the good news. You got through all the easy ones already. Here's the bad news. I only got to do one of them. Logan got the two other easy ones. Like, what the heck? And so this week is race. And I've been really nervous about it. Really nervous about it. And here's why. I'm 27 years old to start with, so my perspective is very short, right? I don't have a long view. I'm also white, surprise, and I went to La Plata High School. I grew up middle class, Southern Maryland, one of the richest areas in the world. I recognize that my perspective is limited, and I'm usually okay with that, because it's whatever. And there's I know that all of you have a lot of forgiveness for youth. But here's the thing, on a topic like this, I know that I could say something, and in my heart, I don't want to hurt anybody. But I could say something and hurt someone. And I don't want to do that, that terrifies me. My short perspective, my limited worldview, and then I could hurt somebody because of that, and that makes me really, really uncomfortable. And it makes me really, really, afraid's probably the wrong word, anxious. I have a healthy respect, a healthy fear of this topic and of how this is supposed to go down. But I know two things. Well, the first one is this: if we don't talk about this here and get a biblical perspective on these things here, where are you going to get it? You're not getting it anywhere else. I mean, maybe at home if you have awesome parents. But outside of that, that's just about it. And then The other thing I know is this. This is the Word of God. And he gave this to us to lean on in times when our view is inadequate. And he gave this to us to find instruction in times when we don't have direction or words. And so my prayer this week has been that I would lean on this, and that I would come to you with a pure heart and a pure mind, and that you would come with an open mind, and that God would keep all my stupid inside. That's been my prayer. So I just want you to know, foundationally, as I start this out, this is where I'm coming from, and this is how I'm feeling, my desire is not to hurt anyone. My desire is to speak the truth in love. All right? All right, I got one other foundational piece I want to give you. A few weeks ago, I did a sermon on, there's a mic there. I did a sermon on identity. And so basically the idea was we find our identity in things other than Jesus. We find our identity a lot right now in emotions, right? In how we feel. And we need to found our identity in Jesus. And so by the end of it, we got to this. Who am I? I'm a disciple. If I call myself a Christian, then I'm a disciple. And I'm a disciple first, right? I'm a disciple first. So I'm a disciple before I'm a man or woman. I follow Jesus first. I'm a disciple before I'm black or white. I'm a disciple before I'm a Republican or a Democrat. Can I get an amen? Amen. That's right. I'm a disciple before I am whatever my occupation is. I'm a disciple of Jesus Christ. That comes first in my life, and I follow him. What do disciples do? They do discipleship. Discipleship is living a life surrendered to Christ while leading others to him. Right? And so that's the foundational piece of this, because ultimately there's two things. We need to love Jesus, and we need to love other people. And the most loving thing that we can do for someone is to tell them about Jesus, to lead them to Jesus. And so that's the foundational piece here, all right? That's what, if we don't start there, we might as well not talk. And so I just want to start with that. And with that, the passage we're going to be coming out of is in Luke. It's Luke chapter 10, verses 25 through 37. You know the story, probably. It's called the parable of the Good Samaritan. And so here we go. Verse 25. On one occasion, an expert of the law stood up to test Jesus. "Teacher," he said, "what must I do to inherit eternal life?" "What is written in the law?" he replied. "How do you read it?" He answered, "Love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your strength, and with all your mind, and love your neighbor as yourself." "You have answered this correctly," Jesus replied. "Do this and you will live." But he wanted to justify himself. So he asked Jesus, "And who is my neighbor?" Time out. How often do we do that? Seriously. But he wanted to justify himself. Like, if you had a narrator in your brain, how many times a week would that narrator say, "But he or she wanted to justify themselves"? All the time. Just a thought. When you're dealing with Jesus, don't try to justify yourself, because this guy is about to get slammed for trying to justify himself. That's how it works, because God works with truth, right? Not your loopholes. All right, moving on. In reply, Jesus said, "A man was going down from Jerusalem to Jericho, and he was attacked by robbers." Now, just so that you understand, this road from Jerusalem to Jericho was super duper dangerous. It was like, it's in a dry riverbed. They call it a wadi. And basically you can get attacked from above on both sides. And so this is a dangerous road. Now, this guy would have known that. And that's why I want you to know that, because this guy would have known that, and he would have gotten an idea of where this story is headed. All right. He knows probably where Jesus is headed. So, they stripped him of his clothes and beat him and went away, leaving him half dead. A priest happened to be going down the same road, and when he saw the man, he passed by on the other side. So to a Levite, when he came to the place and saw him, passed by on the other side. But a Samaritan, as he traveled, came where the man was, and when he saw him, he took pity on him. He went to him and bandaged his wounds, pouring on oil and wine. Then he put the man on his own donkey, brought him to an inn, and took care of him. The next day he took out 2 denarii and gave them to the innkeeper. Look after him, he said, and when I return, I will reimburse you for any extra expense you may have. Which of these three do you think was a neighbor to the man who fell in the hands of the robbers? The expert in the law replied, the one who had mercy on him. Jesus told him, go and do likewise. So this guy got set up. Have you ever said something stupid, like probably to your parents, and they like start boxing you in? And the next thing you know, you have to give them the answer that you don't want to give them, but you know that they wanted you to give them in the first place? That used to happen to me all the time. My dad argues for a living. And I thought I was smart, all right? And so that used to happen to me all the time. That's what happens to this guy. Jesus boxes in this expert of the law. So I have a couple questions on it, though, first. Well, the first one is, did you notice that at the end, he did not say the Samaritan? We call it the parable of the Good Samaritan. Jesus called the man a Samaritan. He didn't say that. He said the one who had mercy on him. Purely speculation right here, but I believe that the guy said the one that had mercy on him because he couldn't even get the words out of his mouth. The Samaritan. How could a Samaritan be better than a priest? How could a Samaritan be better than a Levite? You see, Samaritans to Jews were seen as less. They were seen as dirty. They were seen as half-breeds. It was a racial thing. It was a discrimination thing. It was a prejudice thing. And so I think he was so annoyed at the way that Jesus boxed him in and then made this horrible lesser being the hero of the story. I think he was just frustrated. Why would I say a Samaritan? It was that guy. Right? Another question. Why on earth did the priest and the Levite walk around this guy? He's half dead laying on the side of the road. A priest, that's like a priest's job, right? Right? Like seriously, if I saw a half-dead guy on the side of the road and you saw me walk past him, you would not come back to church here. Why? And then Levites work in the temple. Why did the Levite do it? What the heck? Why? That makes no sense to me. I remember being like 5, 6 years old, sitting in Sunday school. They got the little flannel board with the little goofy looking pieces and guys walking by, and like I remember that and going, why? I don't understand that. Why would you do that? They worked in the temple, and if they touched a dead body, they would be ceremonially unclean. So this is what happened. They didn't see a man laying on the side of the road half dead. They saw a problem. They didn't see a man laying on the side of the road half dead. They saw responsibilities that they might have to push off a little bit. They didn't see a person. They saw a riddle to be solved. He may be alive now, but what happens if he dies on the way? How am I supposed to touch him and then do my job? What am I supposed to do? The first point is this. With the eyes of Christ, see people. And I don't mean physically see people, right? Like I see all of you right now. I don't mean that, right? What I mean is see people, like see people for the value that they're worth. See people that need to be loved. See people that need to be taken care of. See people that need to be served. Like see people rather than baggage. See people rather than problems. See people rather than frustration. Right? How often do we do that though? We don't see an individual. We see all the baggage that comes with them. Everybody has that cousin. Right? If you don't, we're not going to talk about it. Everybody has that cousin that just can't get it together. And what do you do when the family gets together? You go, oh man, he can't get it right. He's just a lost cause. It's just this. It's just that. It's all these other things. But somewhere along the line, you lose sight of the fact that this is a human being that needs to be loved and served. And probably it's because this person has frustrated you to no end. But love has to at some point be somewhat endless, right? You have to see people. So for me, since I just got all up in your family reunion, for me, Okay. First of all, I'm really bummed that I'm here. I want to be at camp. I love doing this. This is actually, when I get to preach, it's exciting for me. I enjoy it. I actually do. This one has had me a little nervous and freaked out. But in general, I enjoy it. I find it to actually be a little bit rejuvenating for me. But I would rather be at camp. This is, since I was going into 7th grade, this is only the second time I haven't gone to NTS camp. So that if in the last 15 years, I've made it 13 times. And I know it sounds silly. I understand I'm 27 years old, and that's a youth camp. But man, the things that I've seen God do, the lives I've seen God change. There's somewhere between 5 and 8 people on this staff that were called to ministry at camp, at NTS camp. There's numerous people I can tell you that God changed their lives. That story that Brandon told about the little girl who found Jesus and it changed her life, that happens every year. That happens every time, and it happens to more than one at a time. God just does stuff. And man, no offense to y'all, but I would rather watch God work for a week. I just would. It's humbling. But anyway, I used to be the youth pastor, which is why it's not that creepy. I haven't been going for no reason. I was a youth pastor for 3 years, and so I started to get comfortable in that job, to be honest with you. Like, the first year or so was like super stressful. We switched the night that we ran the youth group on, all this other stuff. It was really stressful. But then after that, you start to get comfortable. And when you do something enough times, it gets easier. And so it started to get comfortable, and it started to get a little bit easier. We had 2 youth pastors and 1 youth group. And Logan's been doing it on his own and killing it. And by the way, last week, oh my gosh, he nailed it. I was so mad at him. Like, man, I got to preach next week, you jerk. I'm gonna follow that. But anyway, I started to settle in, and I got comfortable, and then I got this call. Hey, we need you to do this job, and it's campus pastor here. And basically, my job is to make sure that everything that you do at church is functioning correctly. Make sure the teams are functioning correctly, make sure communication is working and all that. And I got to be honest with you, I operate in weakness so much. I operate in my weaknesses so much. Day to day, I'm not a very good communicator. Like, I had a lady come up to me today. Man, I've been trying to get scheduled for greeting. Why aren't I getting scheduled for greeting? And I'm like, I don't know. And when we show up, there's too many people. And I'm like, oh, no big deal. We actually want to have 4 or 5 people on the doors. She didn't know that. That falls on me, right? I'm operating in weakness all the time. And so I'm doing my best. And this is what happened. Somewhere along the line, January, February, March, somewhere in there, I started to stop seeing people. What I was seeing was problems. What I was seeing was battles to be fought, fights to be fought, hills to be taken. What I was seeing was new equipment to be bought. You would not believe. You have no idea the amount. So every week it's a new thing that we got to buy. I guess at this week it's the kick drum, the mic on the kick drum. Like, every week it's a new thing. And so I just started seeing all this stuff, and my boss sat me down. His name's Tim. He's our executive pastor, and he also runs the church in Gainesville. And he said, "Hey man, I'm afraid that you're starting to not see the people in front of you." And I said, "What do you mean?" And he said, "You're just seeing problems. You don't see the people, you see the problems that come with the people. You don't see, the cool things that are happening. You see the fights that you still got to fight." And he was like, you can't do that. And I got to be honest with you, that was a big moment for me, because that's not my heart, That's not where I want to be, but that's what I was doing. And I think we do that all the time. Instead of seeing the person to be valued, we see the problem to be solved. So anyway, the priest and the Levite, they see a problem to be solved. They walk away. They keep going. And then the Samaritan walks up and he goes, "Oh my goodness." I'm paraphrasing. "Oh my goodness. Look at this guy." And he takes out oil and wine and he cleans up all his wounds. And then he puts him on a donkey, which reverses all of that cleaning because it's a donkey. And takes him, that's not in the Bible, by the way, if you don't have your Bible. Anyway, takes him to an inn and takes care of him for that night. And the next point is this: with the hands of Christ, we must serve people. If you can't see people, you only see problems, you'll never serve people. But if you see someone that needs to be valued, if you see someone that is worth your time, you will try to take care of them if you can. Right? Like you will try to take care of them if you can. There's a friend of mine runs a nonprofit organization. And this person, as far as I'm concerned, should be granted statehood from the Catholic Church, even though this person is not Catholic. Not statehood, sainthood, whatever. This is the fourth time I've done it. So anyway, this is just a great individual. I got to tell you, I did the first year I worked here, I worked with the missions department, and what we did locally was a lot of work with the homeless folks. And I remember getting a call on a snowy day. "Hey, Robert, we have so-and-so and so-and-so and so-and-so. They need help. How can you help me out?" Now, here's the crazy part about this. This person runs that nonprofit organization. Staff of probably 50 people. And they're personally calling me. That's somebody that serves people with the hands of Jesus Christ. They didn't delegate it. They didn't walk away. They didn't say, "I don't have time for this." They said, "There are people in the woods right now, and their tents are collapsing because of the snow, and I need to take care of them so they don't freeze." That's what that looks like. This sermon was written. The next point is this. I'm going to give it to you up front. It's with the heart of Christ, love people. And this sermon was actually written a little bit differently. When we wrote it in writing session, it was see people, love people, serve people, right? And as I was looking at it, prepping this week, I looked at it and I was like, man, I'm not sure that I like it in that order. And here's why. The Good Samaritan, he takes care of him and he does all of this stuff and he takes him to the inn. And listen, that's like his duty as a human being, right? You see somebody who's half dead, you at least take them to a hospital and get them cleaned up, right? And I think that we kind of are good at that part. Like, we're pretty good at being charitable. You know what I mean? Like if you know that there's people who go to bed hungry at night. So when you're at the grocery store, sometimes you pick up some food and you drop it off at the church on Sunday when you come in, right? You know that there's homeless people, so sometimes you volunteer at Safe Nights, which is the shelter that moves all around the county in the different churches. Or you know that oh my gosh, that there are homeless people in D.C., so you go to a shelter or whatever, or you serve at church or whatever, you do your charitable deed, you know. There's an earthquake and everybody gives $10 to the Red Cross, you know, or everybody goes out and gives blood. We had a blood drive here this week. We're good at doing the charitable thing. But then this guy, the Samaritan, he takes the man to the inn and stays with him that night. That's cool. That's probably high charity, but it's still charity. But then he looks at the innkeeper and he says this, here's money to pay for him, and anything else he needs, I'll cover when I come back. Do you realize how insane that is? How many of you would put somebody up in a hotel and leave and say, if they stay for an extra 2 weeks, just bill me? You know how easily you could get taken advantage of? That's the thing, man. There comes a place where serving crosses over into love. At first, maybe it's not, because I got to be honest with you, a lot of charitable acts are centered in my need to feel good, right? But there comes a place, and I believe it's here, when it hurts you and you still do it, that's when it's love, right? When it hurts you and you still do it, you cross over from being serving and being charitable to being loving and being kind and really exemplifying Jesus. And so here's the thing. My friend who runs the nonprofit, this is what happened towards the end of my time doing missions. She got sick. This person got sick, and it was bad. It was bad. And at the same time, that organization had to change where their offices. They had to move their offices, and money was an issue, and all of it was kind of crazy at the time. And so I said, hey, how can I help? I end up in some meetings, and I'm telling you right now, my friend shows up to these meetings. It's a miracle that this person was able to get out of bed. It's a miracle that this person was able to even show up, to even do anything. It was a miracle because honest to goodness, this person was so sick. But the idea that they wouldn't show up and make sure that people are taken care of, that they wouldn't show up and make sure that this organization could keep moving and find a home and still take care of people, was far worse than the idea of working themselves to death. Literally. I'm not lying to you. I sat in those offices and watched that go down, and watched just the commitment and the courage and the bravery and the strength. And it blew me away. That's what love looks like. That's when all of a sudden you go from just serving and being charitable to loving deeply. I actually saw my friend about a year ago at another event, and I walked up and I said, I watched you during that time, and I need you to know that the way you carried yourself changed my life. If I love people half as much as you do and have half the courage you have, I'll be a far better man than I ever dreamed I could be. And then we hugged and I cried because I am a baby on the inside. It's what loving people looks like. And there comes a place when you love someone and you serve them that the idea of serving, like I said, it hurts. But the idea of serving, it hurts not to serve, right? Like you love them so much and you want to take care of them so much that the idea that you couldn't serve is painful. You want a dumb example? Like we can get not mushy for a minute. All right, it's a little mushy because it has to do with my wife. Anyway, so my wife works night shift. She's a nurse. She's actually on her way to South Carolina right now with the youth group. She's the nurse this week. Pray for her. You try tracking down 100 kids that need meds, and half of them are ADHD, so you don't give them the meds. The adult leaders are going to die. So anyway, she's going down there. I don't actually know that, by the way. There are privacy laws. I did not look at anybody's meds, just so you know. I only know that half of them are ADHD by observation. Anyway, she's a nurse. She works nights, and she has to finish up some schoolwork too. So she'll work a back-to-back. She'll work one night, come home and sleep during the day, and then work another night. And that's what she'll do so that she has about a week to do her schoolwork in between. And so when she works a back-to-back like that, she'll often ask me to get her coffee. And on Friday, she asked me to get her coffee, and this is what happened. We were putting together our drum aquarium right here. Come on. You were a little bit upset that there's not a shark in it. So anyway, we were putting together the drum cage, and I just lost track of time. They were running a little behind on it. I was busy being the guy holding something. I didn't actually do any work. I just held something up. But they needed an extra set of hands, so that's what I did. And all of a sudden I get a text, "Are you going to get me coffee?" And I was like, crap. And here's the thing. She was really sweet about it, but I called her to apologize because I love my wife. And the idea of not being able to serve her and show her that I love her, it bothered me. You get to a place, after you serve people and you love people, but that the idea that you would do less, it bothers you. It hurts you. But I don't think that when it comes to the subject of race, I don't think that that's, by and large, as a society, I don't think that that's where we're at. Just a couple of suggestions if you want to see people, serve people, and love people. A couple of suggestions as far as lifestyle goes. If you want to see people, serve people, and love people better, delete your Facebook. Delete your Facebook. Here's the deal, man. That when people get online, they get stupid. They just get, like, there will be people that are literally like the nicest people in the world. They get online and those social requirements, those social rules are out the window because there's not an individual in front of them. And they'll say the dumbest things in the world. Now, like, seriously, and if you're that person, I'm sorry. Delete your Facebook. And I like to believe that people, like, if you're a Christian, I like to believe that you actually have the best at heart. I don't know that that's always true, but I want to believe that because I want to be able to love you. And so when I see that, I go, this does not line up with the person that I believe you to be. What the heck? Or even this, they'll say something not meaning to be offensive at all, and it's just the wrong thing to say. And then Twitter, like, why have a Twitter? You can't say anything worth saying in 140 characters or less. It's not possible. The president exemplifies that every day. Like, and do you see the news stuff that pops up on Facebook? I'm not going to sit here and say that I know that all of it's verified or unverified. I know a lot of it's fake, but here's the deal with that. If you ever click on one of those links, there's 10 times more advertisements than there is text. You know what that means? That means they're making money off of you clicking on it. You know what else that means? That means it doesn't matter what's in the story. It doesn't matter what's in the story. The headline is going to be as divisive and crazy as possible. So you'll click on it and be like, what? And then you'll read it and you'll be like, well, that was kind of not earth-shattering, but now you've made money for these people and they keep doing it. Here's another piece of advice. If you want to see people better, you want to serve people better, you want to love people better, don't watch cable news. And this is not a political statement. Sean Hannity and Rachel Maddow both make me nauseous. Okay? And they're on opposite ends of the spectrum. All right? It's not a political statement. And in case you're wondering, I didn't vote for Hillary or Donald Trump. That makes me reasonable. So it's not political. I promise you. I do my best to just not even let that be a factor. I want my faith to be apolitical. And I want my politics to be faithful. So I don't care what party someone is. I want to know what they believe. All right? It's not like that for me. So anyway, don't watch cable news, man. It's the same thing. How do you think those anchors get paid? They sell ads. And what stories are the ones that we stay to watch? The most divisive, crazy-sounding ones, or the most appalling, gross ones? How can you live in a world and try to love people when what's getting shoved down your throat every day is divisive and gross? And you know what? It's self-perpetuating because it makes them money, so they keep doing it. It makes me sick. I watch cable news too much. My wife works nights, and it's baseball season. There's nothing on TV. Because if you watch baseball on your couch, like a game, that's cool. But if you watch baseball on your couch, you probably need to be busier. I'm just saying. And if you watch golf on your couch, you need to see a counselor. But that's basically all that's on right now. And so, I don't have anything to watch. So I'll end up watching that. And you know what sticks out to me? They're not saying anything worthwhile. When they talk about I mean, let's talk about the divisive racial things that have popped up, the things that have divided us. The shootings, the people that are dying at the hands of the police, right? On one end, every single police officer is a devil. And on the other end, more white people get shot by cops every year than black people. People died. And that's the argument? That's what we got? Who's mourning? Who's standing in the gap and saying, what about people's souls? Where is the righteous man that will stand and say, my God loved that person, and I pray that they found Jesus before they died, and I pray that because that somehow God can take our ashes and make something beautiful. Who's doing that? Instead, they're shoving crap like that down our throats, and we keep watching. I'm going to read a speech to you. It's an excerpt from I Have a Dream, Martin Luther King Jr. You're going to have to forgive me. I am nowhere near, I will never be anywhere near the orator that he is, so I'm going to read it. But it's an excerpt from it. I say to you today, my friends, even though we face difficulties of today and tomorrow, I still have a dream. It's a dream deeply rooted in the American dream. I have a dream that one day this nation will rise up and live out the true meaning of its creed. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal. I have a dream that one day on the red hills of Georgia, sons of former slaves and former slave owners will be able to sit down together at the table of brotherhood. I have a dream that one day, even the state of Mississippi, a state sweltering with the heat of injustice and sweltering with the heat of oppression, will be transformed into an oasis of freedom and justice. I have a dream that my 4 little children will one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. I have a dream. I have a dream that one day in Alabama, with its vicious racists and its governor having his lips dripping with the words of interposition and nullification, one day right there in Alabama, little black boys and black girls will be able to join hands with little white boys and we'll be able to join hands with little white boys and white girls as sisters and brothers. I have a dream today. I have a dream that one day every valley shall be exalted and every hill and mountain shall be made low. The rough places will be made plain and the crooked places will be made straight, and the glory of God shall be revealed and all flesh shall see it together. This is our hope. This is the faith that I go back to the South with. With this faith, we will be able to hew out of the mountain of despair a stone of hope. With this faith, we will be able to transform the jangling discords of our nation into a beautiful symphony of brotherhood. With this faith, we will be able to work together, to pray together, to struggle together, to go to jail together, to stand up for freedom together, knowing that we will be free one day.
Amen. Yeah.
Imagine this moment. This is a man who's worked his entire adult life on civil rights. Like, he's started organizations, and they're marching on Washington. There's somewhere between 250 and 500,000 people between the steps of the Lincoln Memorial and the steps of the Capitol. This is, as far as he would know, this is the climax of his life, of his life's work. He could have said anything. What are they going to do? Take the mic from him? He's got a team of 250,000 people behind him. They're not taking the mic from him. He can say anything. And what did he say? He talked about brotherhood. talked about sisterhood. He talked about forgiveness. He talked about love. He talked about the glory of God being revealed through the actions of his people. That's what we need. This is what Martin Luther King Jr. understood, that we don't so often. You can't fight injustice with injustice. You can't. An eye for an eye makes the whole world blind. You can't fight injustice with injustice. Only righteousness defeats injustice. James chapter 5, verse 16 says this, "Therefore, confess your sins to each other and pray for each other so that you may be healed. The prayer of a righteous person is powerful and effective." He also understood you can't fight hate with hate. Only love can defeat hate. And 1 John chapter 4 says this, "There's no fear in love, but perfect love drives out fear." Here's the thing. I believe hate starts with fear. You're afraid, and so you get angry, because anger is a defense mechanism for fear. And once you get angry, you get hateful if you live in it long enough. God can take that out at the root. God says love will crush hate at the root. He understood that. If we don't stand in the gap and say, I'm going to see people and I'm going to value them because my God created them, so they have intrinsic value. They were born valuable. If we don't stand in the gap and say, I see that person, I see what they need, and I will serve them no matter what they look like, no matter how they act. If we don't stand in the gap and say, I'm going to love that person, I'm going to serve them till it hurts, and I will love them no matter what they look like, no matter how they act, no matter where they're from. Who will? If we don't do it, who will? Tell me. They're not doing it in D.C. They're not. And it's not coming back around anytime soon. It's just not. They're not doing it on the cable news network. There's money to be made in both places. That makes us not important enough. Straight up. Facebook's not fixing it. Twitter is not fixing it. And people outside of the walls of this church are begging for the love that we possess in our hearts. If we don't stand in the gap, who will? I asked, where is the righteous man? Where's the righteous woman that will stand in the gap and do that? This is my plea to you this week. Be that man. Be that woman. Dear God, let us be disciples of you first. Let us love you so much that we can't help but see people, and that we can't help but serve people, and that we can't help but serve people so long until we love them. God, let us love people. Remove the prejudices and the discrimination and just remove all of those things that are in our minds. Make us pure of heart, pure of mind. Make us strong. Make us courageous. Make us the men and women that you created us to be, and make us people that will change the world by showing them your love and not by buying into all the junk on TV. God, just make us better. Let us do better. In your name, amen.